This is Umpire LaFondios, and it's my pleasure to present to you the battle report for the International Kriegsspiel Society's replay of the Battle of Milne Bay, 1942. Here are the 14 players who participated in the game. CIC's Hendrick and Carroll faced off in this difficult scenario. The Australian force consisted of 24 infantry companies, each of which had strong defensive capabilities. 2 artillery batteries supported the force. The Japanese force was made up of 20 elite companies of marine infantry who were jungle-trained and strong in the attack. They have armor and artillery in support. Historically, the Japanese wanted to secure the area by seizing Port Moresby. From their base in Rabaul, they sent a force to Buna to attack over land. In order to do this attack successfully, they needed to neutralize the Allied airfields in Milne Bay, here where you see the yellow circle. The scenario replays this fight at Milne Bay. Let's now look at the plans made by both sides in the replay. The Australian CIC, played by Carroll, plans to concentrate all forces behind the river near Rabi. The purple arrows are where he expects the Japanese to attack. The Japanese player's plan is based on a careful series of moves that he hopes will get his forces into the right place at the right time. He wants to concentrate where the red question marks are shown here. The challenges of this battle come primarily from the difficult terrain. The swampy ground is very rough. You can see in the picture how severe the hills are in the area. The jungle is thick enough that it demands all the troops have special training. The Japanese commander chooses to fight at night to neutralize the Allied air, so operations begin at 5 p.m., and you can see the relative start positions here. An hour later game time, the Japanese have moved unhindered to the first river. At 8 p.m. game time, the Japanese have followed their plan precisely. The Australians have pushed some patrols forward toward the village to ensure they are warned if the Japanese approach. By 9 p.m., the Japanese force in the far north continues to climb the hills, and the force in the south attacks the patrols. 2 hours later, in the south, the Japanese begin their attack. The far northern Japanese force has crossed the hills, and once they cross the river, they are assaulted by 3 Australian companies. Player Hannibal, who was in charge of those Australian companies, states that this decision backfired because his forward elements got too spread out and reserve units were too far away to help. The Japanese in the center continue pressing the attack. Player Grand Louis said he chose to do this to maintain momentum, but his heavy losses from artillery was the price that he had to pay. In the far south, player Anakazan says his most important decision of the game was when he had to initiate a crossing of the river and when he had to decide to pull back. His commander, player 7Es, says his most important decision was committing Anakazan to that attack. It's 0100 game time and the Japanese launched their last attack. Player Octavius Victor says the most important decision he made in the game was whether he should hold his position or attack with his exhausted troops against a fresh enemy. In the final actions in the replay, the Australians counterattack and stop the exhausted Japanese. The Japanese forces, depleted and unable to achieve their objective of taking the airfield, decide to pull out. The replay is over. Player Chief says his most important decision was at this point, where he requested that the Commander-in-Chief, player Carroll, send 2 companies to guard the road in the west. The scenario ended with a marginal Australian victory. Player Carroll, who commanded the Australians, was able to delegate artillery and organize a counterattack force, both decisions which helped him turn the tide. Now let's compare the result of this replay with the historical battle. The historical Australian commander assigned the less experienced 7th Infantry Brigade a defensive role and pushed it forward, guarding key points around the bay, and kept the veteran 18th Infantry Brigade in reserve, ready to counterattack. After landing and moving around the bay, the Japanese 5th Special Naval Landing Force crossed the First River and engaged the forward-deployed 7th Infantry Brigade. However, the Australians were able to stop them. Like our replay, the battle went into the evening, though in this case, the historical Australians pulled back to the Second River, hotly pursued by the Japanese. Things quieted down overnight, and the following day the Australian 18th Infantry Brigade attacked across the river and pushed the Japanese force back past KB Mission. The Australians followed this success and continued pushing the Japanese out across the Second River to Goroni. Realizing they had underestimated the Australian strength and unable to land additional troops or supplies, the Japanese commanders decided to withdraw. It was the first tactical defeat of the Japanese forces in the theater. This is Umpire LaFondios, the creator of and lead umpire for this Milne Bay scenario. Both the replay and the historical battles were Australian victories, but achieved in different ways. Terrific play by our 14 International Kriegsspiel Society participants. Thanks for watching this battle report, and we hope to see you out there on the Kriegsspiel board.